Video number 3 of your review packet, problems 5, 6, and 7 from the review packet from Monday, October 15th. Number 5 says, based on the information given, find the function indicated below. If cotangent theta equals negative 6 over 7 and theta is in quadrant 4, find the secant of theta. First question I always ask is, where is it? It tells me that theta is in quadrant 4, so theta takes me to the 4th quadrant. On the bottom right. What do I know about the 4th quadrant? I know that x is positive and y is negative. Okay, so that's going to help me out a little bit later on. What do I already know? I know that cotangent of theta is negative 6 over 7. But I also know that cotangent is the reciprocal of tangent. It is x over y. So if I assign that to what's given to me, I can say that x is 6 and y is 7. But where does that negative go? It can't go on both top and bottom because that would give me a positive fraction. It has to go on either the top or the bottom. That's where this location comes in handy. X has to be positive because it's in the 4th quadrant, and y has to be negative. So I'm going to leave x as positive 6. And y as negative 7. If we're finding secant of theta, I know secant of theta is the reciprocal of cosine, so it's r over x. That means I have my x value. I know it's going to be over 6, but I don't know my r value. How do I find it? Using the Pythagorean theorem. X squared plus y squared equals r squared. And I know some of you have already switched that and solved for r directly to become the square root of the quantity x squared plus y squared. And this just makes our life a little bit more simply. So r equals the square root of, and I use parentheses again, x, which is 6 squared, plus quantity negative 7 squared. 6 squared is 36. Negative 7 quantity squared is 49. Add those together, you get the square root of 85. Can I simplify this a little bit further? No, you can't. There is no perfect square that goes into 85. So this just stays as the square root of 85. And yes, it still is positive. Radius is always positive. So secant theta is just the square root of 85 over 6. And that's it. To solve number 6, evaluate the following trig functions given their exact value and drawing the angle's location. Okay, so this is very important with drawing the angle's location. It's very important that you know that the angles that are closest to the x-axis are my 30 degrees, or pi over 6, and the angles that are closest to the y-axis are my 60 degrees, or pi over 3. And the ones in the middle are always pi over 4, or 45 degrees. So it's very important that you know specifically which dot you're going to. First question I always ask, where is it? 7 pi over 6. Okay. 7 pi over 6, that's one more than 6 pi over 6. So that tells me if I started on my initial side, I passed the negative x-axis because this is a whole pi, or 6 pi over 6. I went one more pi over 6 from pi, which brought me to the 3rd quadrant. If it's in the 3rd quadrant, I know both x and y are negative. I know that this angle is pi over 6, or 30 degrees, because it is the shortest angle to go back to my x-axis. If that is 30 degrees or pi over 6, I know opposite my shortest angle is my shortest side, 1/2. And adjacent to my shortest angle is my longest side, square root of 3 over 2. And as always, radius of r. Let's draw this out here. So this is 30 degrees, or pi over 6, my reference angle. Opposite that, negative 1/2. Adjacent, negative square root of 3 over 2, and my radius is 1. Sine of theta is y over r. My y value is negative 1/2. My r is 1. Any number divided by 1 is itself. So sine of 7 pi over 6 is negative 1/2. Letter B, secant of pi over 2. Where is it? Pi over 2, for those of you who have trouble with this, I know that all the way across is pi. And that over 2 tells me that I'm splitting the top half up into 2 sections. Well, if I look at my quadrants, they're already split up for me. So pi over 2 has to go halfway between 0 and pi. So my terminal side ends right on the positive y-axis. Now, we don't have a reference triangle that we can use for this, but we know that r equals 1, the distance from the center of the circle to the edge. So if this is 1, that's also the y value of 1. And it's on the y-axis, so on the y-axis the x value is 0. So I know that x equals 0, r equals 1, and y equals 1. Secant of theta, let's move this up here. Secant is the reciprocal of cosine, so it's r over x. My r is 1, my x is 0. If you're confused about this, put it into your calculator. 1 divided by 0, I get an error, divide by 0. It's impossible to divide by 0, which means that this is undefined. Or you could just remember that dividing by 0 is undefined. It's impossible. Letter C, tangent, of negative 11 pi over 4. Negative tells me I'm going to go clockwise. Now, some of you like to split your circle up into pieces. So over 4 means the bottom and the top all have 4 slices. And the easiest way for me to do this is to just count around. I'm going clockwise through 11 slices. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So my terminal side ends in the 3rd quadrant. Let's clear all these out. If you wanted to, you could have just changed it to degrees, and that might have made your life a little bit easier. My reference angle goes back to the x-axis. And let's draw this out here. This angle is pi over 4. If this was 11 pi over 4, this would be 12 pi over 4. So this reference angle has to be pi over 4 or 45 degrees. A 45, 45, 90 triangle has both legs as square root of 2 over 2 and a radius of 1, but I know it's in quadrant 3, so my x and my y are both negative. Tangent, I know is y over x. My y value is negative square root of 2 over 2. My x value is negative square root of 2 over 2. Negative divided by a negative is a positive. Any number divided by itself is 1. So I get positive 1. And that's it. Cosine of 210 degrees. It's positive, so I'm going to go counterclockwise. It's past the 180 axis, but it's not at the 270 yet. So it's going to be somewhere in the 3rd quadrant. And quite a few in the 3rd quadrant today. How far beyond 180 degrees is it? Well, if I subtract 180 degrees, that gives me a reference angle of 30. So I know that it's right here at this first dot in the 3rd quadrant. And again, I can use my reference triangle that I drew in my first problem. 30 degrees, or pi over 6. It's my shortest angle, or my smallest angle. Opposite my smallest angle is my shortest side, 1/2. Adjacent is the square root of 3 over 2. Radius is 1. My x and y are both negative because it's in the third quadrant. Cosine is x over r. X is negative square root of 3 over 2. R is 1. Any number divided by 1 is negative square root of 3, or is itself, negative square root of 3 over 2. And I will continue problem number 7 in the next video.